Ensafi here, welcoming you to another video here on my YouTube channel, where I teach you all about English language. And you, my friend, you have the best seats in the house for an up-close and personal experience. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. In today's video, I'm going to explain the common English questions and how you answer them. Make sure you'll stick around as I will discuss the most common questions with answers in English. Hi, how are you? My name is Mahdieh. Nice meeting you. In this video, we're going to learn easy ways to ask and answer questions that are very common. In this session, I'm going to talk about more common ways to ask and answer questions in English. How are you? We have learned that the most common answer to this question is "I'm fine, thank you." But from my experience, people in North America use many other ways to answer this. I myself was blown away by the variety of the ways that North Americans answered this question. Some of these ways are pretty good. Pretty good is the same as "I'm fine." It's more casual and more friendly. Not bad. You use "not bad" when you are feeling okay. Another way to answer this question, "How are you?" is to say, "I'm all right. I'm all right." You can also say, "Doing well, how about you?" Doing well, how about you? Another way to answer "how are you" is to simply say, "I'm good. I'm good." Now, to be polite, North Americans say, "How are you?" or "and you." It simply keeps the conversation going. Now let's look at some other ways to ask "how are you?" These ways are informal and much more common. First one is, "How's it going?" How's it going? You can answer this question in different ways. You can answer it with all the different phrases we talked about previously. Good, pretty good, not bad. It's important to keep it positive when making a conversation, but if you are not really feeling good, you can say, "Not so good, not so good, not so well, not so well." Please remember, when you use one of these, the other person might ask, "Why?" So be prepared to answer in a polite way. And you don't have to give all the little details about how you are not feeling good. You can just say, "Same old," but make sure you are doing it in a nice and polite way. The next expression is very common in English, but it's very informal. What's up? What's up? To answer, you can say "not much." Not much. What's up is a very common way to say hello as well. So you can also reply with "hey" or "hi." Please also remember that "how are you" is not another way to make conversation. Some people really mean it when they say "how are you?" But mostly this is a conversation opener and a way to be polite. So you can say "how are you" if you know someone and you would like to start a conversation with them. Most people would be happy to continue with the conversation, so be prepared to ask some questions after or to answer some other people's questions. It can sometimes be embarrassing to just say hi and to just say "I'm good" and move on. It is always a good idea to be ready for the next question and continue with the conversation. In fact, to answer "what's up," you don't have to answer at all. Just say "what's up." The next common question, especially in North America, is to ask what someone's job is, and how to answer that question is very important. To give you a little background, asking what someone's job is in a conversation can come off as rude sometimes. If you are, for instance, on a bus and don't know the other person and you're simply making a conversation, it's not always a good idea to straight up ask, "What is your job?" So be careful what context or situation you are using to ask this question. Asking "what is your job" sounds too direct and sometimes rude. Instead, you can use a different question. "What do you do?" What do you do? What do you do is a common way to ask about somebody's job. Please remember what you do is completely different from what are you doing, or what do you do is completely different from what are you doing. These two questions, what do you do and what are you doing, sound similar, but they have many differences. When you say what are you doing, you are simply asking the person to tell you what they are doing at that moment. This means you will need to use a verb plus ing. For instance, what are you doing? You can answer with, I'm watching your video on YouTube. That answer really makes me happy, by the way. Or you can say, I'm looking at the screen, or anything that you are doing at that moment, like watching TV. However, when you say, what do, you are really asking, what is your job, or what do you do for a living? This is a natural way to ask what your job is. Now it's your turn to tell me, what do you do? What are you doing? Now, some people tend to speak faster, and this makes it difficult to tell between the two. To understand if they are saying, what do you do, or what are you doing, all you need to do is to listen for the ing. If you hear an ing at the end of the question, they are most probably asking you, what are you doing? So you answer what you're doing at that moment. What do you do is just another way to ask a person about their job. You can just say, I am a teacher. I am a dentist. You can also mention the name of a company that you are working for. But you have to start with, I work at a shop, I work at a hospital. Or you can just say, I work for Apple. In this case, Apple is the name of the company. It is always a good idea to give a comment. However, please listen carefully so you can reply and add a comment accordingly. For example, if a person says they work for a fur company, fur being the animal hair, and you are simply not a fan of it, you don't need to reply with cool. All you can say is, I see. That is an answer that is not necessarily positive, nor is it negative. This neutral answer helps you still continue with the conversation and at the same time be polite. You don't want to let someone down because of their job. Remember to always be polite, sincere, and pleasant. Okay. Now we're going to look at some questions that some people might ask about your hobbies. And we also look at some ways to answer those questions. You're familiar with what are some of your hobbies? What are some of your hobbies? This question is a simple way to ask about someone's hobbies. However, it's not the most natural one. A much more natural way to ask about someone's hobbies are, what do you do for fun? Or what do you do in your free time? What do you do in your free time? One way to answer this is to say, I like to, and then say what you would like to do in your free time. Remember, keep the verb simple. For example, I like to watch TV. I like to read. Another way to answer this is to simply say, I like, and tell the person what you like doing. Please remember you are using I like, so you would need verb plus ing. I like watching TV. I like reading. Please remember you cannot use to if you are using ing. And if you have a strong feeling about doing something as a hobby, you can always say, I watch TV almost every day, or I read almost every day. With adding almost every day to the end of your sentence, you're emphasizing that you'd like to do something almost every day. That implies that you are talking about your hobbies or you are in love with doing something. Another common question and answer in English is to ask somebody about their background. For example, where they are from or what nationality they are. When people ask you where you are from, they usually mean what your nationality is or what country you are from. However, if they already know that answer, they might be asking what city or state you are from. If you want to answer that question, here are some ways to do it. You can simply say I'm, and then you can say your nationality. For example, I'm Canadian, I'm British, I'm plus nationality. Or you can say I'm from plus the name of the country. For example, I'm from Japan, I'm from England. I'm from Canada. If you're asked which city you are from, you can do the same thing as you can say, I'm from Beijing, I'm from London. Please be careful if you are asking this question casually. In Canada, it's not very common to ask where a person is from if you are curious about their personal life or their race. So make sure that the person is comfortable enough with this question, and if not, you can always continue your conversation in other ways. So to be polite, you can be a little more indirect. To do this, you can ask them if they are from that place where you both met. For example, if you meet someone in Toronto, they might say, are you from here? Or are you from Toronto? Are you from Canada? Canada is very multicultural, so asking these questions can save you a lot of time and avoid embarrassing situations. So this is the same way you answer where you are you from. You can answer, no, I'm from New York. I'm from New York. Or you can just say, I'm not from here. But please make sure it doesn't sound short or insincere. In the United States and Canada, people might answer these questions in a more general way. So they might say, I'm from West Coast, or I'm from East Coast, or I'm from the South or Midwest. Even though that's a more general way to answer this question, it can show that they take pride in where they are from and are willing to continue the conversation by telling you what their region looks like and how it differs from other regions. Another way people ask about each other's background or nationality or the city they come from is, are you from around here? This usually indicates that they are interested in talking about where you come from, or they are asking about where you both just met. You can answer this question simply with, oh, no, I'm not from around here, or I'm not from here, or I'm from Italy. Next common question and answer would be, what's your name? Before we get started, I have to mention that this is probably not the best way to start a conversation. In North America, usually when people meet, they start with, hey, I'm Mahdieh, or then they say their names, or hi, then they say their names. So you'll know up front what their names are. Now, if you say what's your name in the middle of a conversation, it can indicate that you were not listening to the person or conversation carefully, or you are a teacher like me and you keep forgetting people's names. I hear ya. In English, like many other languages, it is often more polite to be a little indirect. Of course, the easiest way to avoid asking a question directly is not to ask the question at all. Just introduce yourself and most people would respond by doing the same thing. And if you're interested to meet them and ask their name, you can just say, hi, I'm Mahdieh, and you? Or you can just say, hi, I'm Mahdieh, and you are? You simply take out my name and you put your name right in there. Hi, my name is. Now, as I mentioned before, sometimes the name of the person slips your mind. For example, you have met the person before and you simply cannot remember their name next time you see them. The most polite thing to do is in this situation, it's simply apologize and ask again. There is a polite way to do this. You can simply say, I'm sorry, what was your name again? This is very similar to asking the other person's name, but at first you apologize for not remembering the other person's name. When you say what was your name, the only difference is the word was, which is the past tense. This is really important as it tells that the other person that you don't remember their name, but you remember meeting them. This little word makes all the difference and can save you from some embarrassing situations. I'm sorry, what was your name again? We also add to the end of the sentence, again. That's another hint to the other person that you remember learning about their names before, but you just can't recall it now. In North America, it is very common to call people by their first name. In other parts of the world, it might not be as common. For example, if you're talking to a person that is older than you and you know they might be offended by you calling them by their first name, please use common sense and maybe use something before their name, such as Mr. or Mrs. Please remember, if you are using Mrs. and Mr. or Mr. and Mrs., it is very common to use their last name after Mr. and Mrs. But in North America, you can call people by their first name, if it's safe to do so, of course. It's a way to show respect and interest in the other person or in your conversation with them. And it's also a great way to make some friends. And this is a good idea because if you repeat their name in a conversation, you're basically practicing remembering their name. Plus, people love to hear the name, and that shows you respect the conversation. If you are asking a person named Jack this question, where are you from? You can simply say, Jack, where are you from? Or where are you from, Jack? Please remember not to use the person's name too often or it would sound a little weird. This was a short advice that I got from one of my coworkers here on YouTube. So shout out to you, Alicia. Another common way to ask and answer questions in English is to ask where the person lives. This question, where do you live, usually is discussed between two adults and after they have met, ask each other's names, nationalities, or probably jobs. So where do you live? This is an invitation to continue with the conversation. There's a lot of ways to answer this question, but here are some that I know of. You could simply say, do you know, and then add the area that you live in. Do you know Thornhill? Or you can mention a local landmark like a name of a mall. Do you know Center Point Mall? Or I live near the library. Once you've told them, the other person might respond in one of the following ways. Oh yeah, I know it. I live near there. Or maybe, I'm afraid I don't know it. So you can reply by saying something like, oh really? Since the other person is asking you this question to be polite, a good way to continue the conversation is to ask them the same question in return, unless if you're talking to a minor and you don't know them really well. However, as I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, beginning of the video, we established that we know the person that's an adult and we feel comfortable continuing the conversation with them. In return, you can answer with, how about you? Or where do you live? Or you can put some stress on you. Where do you live? Keep in mind two important details in this conversation. If a person is asking you about where you live, they are showing interest in conversation. So if they mention an area or place that they live in, make sure you add a nice comment. And in general, keep the conversation sincere and be polite. Saying something negative about what they just mentioned can make them embarrassed or simply lose interest in the conversation. And the second thing is to be careful how loosely you're asking this question. Some people might be offended by you asking them where they live, and this is a very personal question, and some people do not like to necessarily share details in conversations, especially for their safety. So please be considerate of how, when, and from whom you are asking this question. And last but not least, and of course as a friendly reminder, try not to discuss questions that concern somebody's address loudly, or try not to discuss it with younger people or kids, just because it simply promotes sharing personal information with others, which is not always the best thing to do. The last question I would like to discuss with you is to ask someone where they went to school or college or university. Asking about someone's educational background is a nice way to start a small talk, and it's a conversation starter. However, you have to be careful not to offend people if they didn't go to college or university. If the person is in her early 20s story, it's most likely that they have finished college, so you can use past tense. Where did you go to college? You could also say, where did you go to school? Bear in mind that the word school means college or university in North America, whereas in other parts of the world, school simply means the years that you have completed before moving on to college or university. So if you're in North America and somebody is asking about your school years, they're simply asking about your educational background. If the person is from Britain or Europe, I heard, they might ask, where did you go to university? To answer this, you can say, I went to, and then you add your university, the name of the university or the name of the city. I went to Azad University in Tehran. I went to UFT in Canada. In my second sentence, I simply added Canada instead of the city, just because UFT already mentions the name of the city in itself. UFT stands for University of Toronto, so you can add the country. It's always a polite way to make a comment, usually a nice one. Wow, that's a really nice university. Or they might say, oh, really? Sometimes when you ask, where did you go to college? The other person might reply, I didn't go to college. In this situation, you should be careful how you reply so you don't sound rude or offensive. So you can say, did you start a job right away? However, if they have gone to school, it's always a good idea to continue the conversation with what did you study or what was your major? People love to talk about their educational background, and that can also help the conversation to keep going. Okay, this is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching my video up to here. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure to like, leave a comment, share, send this video to somebody who you think might need it. And until